Jonathan Turley is joining us with the breaking news that we just heard this judge is blocking the birthright citizenship executive order that came from the president in his first days of office. Jonathan, your reaction here?
Well, this is along the lines of what we just discussed on the air, that this is the most vulnerable executive order of all of those issued by President Trump. The widespread expectation was this result. The Trump administration knew that. There's every indication that the Trump administration invited a challenge because they want to get into the courts in order to eventually make it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can, of course, change the interpretation of the 14th Amendment, although I would still say that that is unlikely. But I think that what you're really seeing playing out here is a dual legal and political strategy. Frankly, I think that the Trump administration views this as winning either way. That is, to the extent that it forces Democrats to oppose the legislation in Congress, to oppose this effort in court, it plays well with a large number of citizens who don't agree with birthright citizenship. People should realize that we're in the minority on this. Most of our close allies in Europe, most of the world, does not recognize birthright citizenship. So I think you're seeing both a legal and political strategy playing out.
So this was tested in the courts. It was a long time ago. It was back in 1898, the case of Wong Kim Ark, who was son of Chinese parents. He was born in San Francisco. Under the 14th Amendment, he would have qualified under the original interpretation as a citizen of the United States. He went to visit his parents in China. Then when he came back, he was denied entry. But the Supreme Court decided in favor of him. So that's, I guess, since then, it's been determined that anybody who is in this country who's not working as a diplomatic attaché or something like that, or working diplomatically for an embassy, if they have a child in the United States, that child is an American citizen. But getting back to your point, when you look at that affirmation of the 14th Amendment provision in 1898 and this idea that, well, maybe they don't need a constitutional amendment, can the Supreme Court simply clarify what they believe is the intention of the 14th Amendment, Jonathan?
Yes, they can. I mean, the thing is, the case that you mentioned, people who challenge birthright citizenship point out that the Chinese parents were lawfully here. No one is challenging the idea that the children of citizens or lawful residents can have this claim. But yes, the Supreme Court can adopt an alternative interpretation of those 6 key words. What do they mean? And there may be some justices who are inclined to do that. But this has been the longstanding precedent that the Supreme Court has followed. So it was virtually impossible that the Trump administration could prevail in the lower courts because they would feel bound by this case law. Now, the question about head counting on the Supreme Court makes this rather difficult. I think that there might be some justices who are interested in re-examining those 6 words and what they mean and not effectively reading them out of the amendment. But I also think that what these justices are going to be really influenced by is that there was a division of opinion at the time this was passed. Some of the people at that time said that it did not allow birthright citizenship, while others said that it did. And I think that you might find some conservative justices inclined to stay with that approach. Justices like John Roberts, who tends to be an incrementalist, tends to be much more conservative on these types of questions.
All right, Professor, stand by with us if you would.
Hey, everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.